Ivy. I am the creator and host of Lives in Astrology. And I am so grateful to be here today on a live podcast with spiritual psychologist Jade Ritam. And today we are, sorry guys, I'm just trying to go live on Instagram. Give me one moment. Okay, and looks like we're live on Instagram. Perfect. Can't believe that's working. Thank goodness Mercury retrograde's over. Woohoo!
Yeah.
And so in today's conversation, for those that are here live or whoever watches in the future, thank you so much for joining this conversation. And today in Virgo season, as we are approaching Virgo season, Virgo in astrology is all about health, about mental health, spiritual health, health in general, the physical health. And so we are, Jade and myself are called to do a 3 week for the weeks of Virgo season or the Strongs. We're going to be concentrating on all matters of health, and primarily because of the astrological configurations right now that's pointing to mental health, and especially with Pluto going into Aquarius and now it's retrograde. For those again who are studying astrology, you know what I'm talking about. We're now in retrograde into Capricorn, which is about power structures, and the retrograde is going back and completing some cycles. And you know, with Aquarius, it's the higher mind, and it does rule because it's ruled by the air signs. It has to do with the mental realms. And so, right now, because of where the planetary energies are, with Venus also in Libra, which is about relationships, and it's right next to the South Node, which is about karmic or past relationships, we're all feeling the energy of mental health constructs, how we think, and our interpersonal relationships. These are all woven together astrologically. It's a very dense time. And I wanted to, Jade and myself wanted to pull this podcast together because we wanted to come from a couple of different peripheries of describing the energy. From the astrological perspective, which I just kind of gave a little bit of an overview because there's so much happening this month. We're also having this huge eclipse coming towards the middle month of the 17th, 18th. So when we know eclipses take things away, and it's going to be in Pisces, so it's our spiritual nature. It has to do with illusions. So there's just so much going on energetically. But I wanted to invite in Jade to give a psychological reflection as a spiritual psychologist, and she's been studying psychology for 40 years plus. And she has a very unique and interesting perspective, having woken up and being on the awakening path as well as the psychology path. There are some beautiful energies that are interwoven in that her and I have been able to discuss that can be seen astrologically. So, you know, as above, so below, as within, so without, everything is connected. We are all one. And so the science of, and I would say that the study or the art of astrology is merging and has merged since Carl Jung integrated the two. And now Carl Jung, I don't know if you guys know this, but his daughter's an astrologer, right? So he was able to gather a lot of the precepts of psychological work having to do with astrology. So moving forward, I wanted to invite Jade to give us some perspective on the psychology of what we're feeling during this awakening time with these configurations of Pluto going into Aquarius, going backwards, having these power structures within us, these dynamics within relationships, interpersonal relationships, karmic patterns in past relationships, how they're showing up now, and how it's relative to the spiritual awakening, to what we're feeling on a spiritual level. It's so deep. So with that being said, I wanted to go into and invite Jade in to, can you lead us and guide us, Jade, with what you've been experiencing in the psychological realms with people that you've been counseling, and how you're seeing these energies, these dynamics that you and I speak of, how they're playing out in the psychology of humanity and what you're witnessing real time.
That's a big, broad spectrum to talk about, so I'll do my best. But it's not just people I work with, it's everyone, it's myself included. I'm not exempt from any of this. No one is exempt from any of this. We're all going through it, whether we're conscious of it or not. We're going through the biggest experimental shift in the universe that's supposedly ever been performed. So I've heard that we're extremely lucky. Well, not lucky as in luck, but there are many, many, many outside the planet watching with bated breath, watching us all do this work. Um, it's it's not for the faint of heart. Let me put it that way. But we're all playing a part in this because we can't have the light or see in the dualistic nature of where we are in this planet. We can't see the light without, we can't be the light without embracing the dark. And what's happening is me, everyone I know, on some level, on some form, we're encountering those dark parts of us that we call dark. But if we embrace all of ourselves, which is the challenge, because none of us have been conditioned to embrace ourselves. We've been conditioned to be good. We've been conditioned to get approval. We've been conditioned to turn off feelings that aren't comfortable. We've been conditioned. No, it's not conditioning. We actually had the fight or flight in our on a bodily level that makes us just, want to change things really fast and not sit with them. Sit with this discomfort that we're all feeling. It's an energetic discomfort because it's an energetic transition. We've never been here before. So,
what are you seeing you're transitioning into?
I see the transition as in embracing more and more of our true self. What does that look like? It's going to be different for everybody. But it is not this body. It's not the ego. I think of the ego as easing God out. Not that we're here for the egoic purpose of having an ego and then reaching through and past that into a recognition of who we truly are. But it doesn't mean all of a sudden we're going to operate in who we truly are. It means that somehow we're working right now, and this is the struggle we're all having that I can see, is that we're trying to integrate it. We're trying to integrate that humanistic, that ego part of ourselves that makes us human, that makes us each unique. And yet, on a spiritual level, which is who we truly are, spirit having a human experience, and not a spirit that's somewhere inside us, but a spirit that is also outside of us. So we're trying to embrace that. And when we first embrace that, there's often a rejection of all those other things that we call dark, or the parts of ourselves that we don't like or we think other people don't like. But it's time, it's an integration time. This is really a time of integrating our humanity with the ego, not to destroy the ego. That's not going to happen while we're here, but integrating that with the knowledge of who we truly are. And that is a practice that takes time. And what I find is that people are, it's going to show up in your relationships. It's going to show up in your life. It's going to show up in your trying to do things and it not working out or how you're feeling about it. It is really a dance right now. Sometimes when you're learning a dance, you step all over everybody's feet. Sometimes when you're doing a dance, you trip on your own feet. And sometimes the dance, you just fall into it. You get out of your head. You stop thinking, and suddenly your body's just flowing and you're in it. And
so have you noticed becoming a psychotherapist and the spiritual aspect of it? Why now do you call yourself a spiritual psychotherapist as opposed to just a psychotherapist? What's the upgrade for that?
Great question. Great question. Because when I was trained as a psychotherapist, and I don't know that I went to a Jungian institute, which was again different because it allowed for that spiritual component. But traditional psychotherapy, traditional, especially psychoanalysis, is based on the idea that you will process whatever pain or whatever your past was. You're going to process it, and in processing it, it will heal itself. Well, sometimes, often, processing can be just re-injuring yourself. You're just re-traumatizing yourself by believing in the story more and more. You're digging it more and more into a truth that may not even be true. Most often, it's not. It's perceptual truth, but not necessarily truth, which is a whole nother discussion. But it's when we recognize that other component which makes up who we actually are, because even though we're not body, in the human experience, we're body, mind, and spirit. But yet when psychology in traditional ways has dealt with processing and helping humans assist in their getting to know themselves, it's just been really more of a uncovering of your subconscious mind by going deeper and uncovering a lot of your past, going back into your past, churning up your past. And that is one approach. Now, there are positives to that, but that's not where I see the healing. What happened was I just saw the healing took a long time, and sometimes it never happened. As soon as I added in the spiritual component and started to deal with helping people to see who they truly are, it started to change everything. Because what I realized is if you're trying to teach people self-love, which is the healing, right? We all want self-love. That's really the bottom line. You go to a therapist because you don't have self-love and you want to learn self-love. Well, if we're learning to try to love our ego, you can imagine how that is probably never going to happen. I can tell you right now, the ego is not about love. The ego is about control. It's about maintaining separation so that I am separate from you and we come from that. It's a very protective mechanism. It's our fight or flight. It's part of that as well.
Is the ego the enemy?
But it's not our enemy because we agreed to come here to do this so we could be so we could experience a separateness where we're, and you might say, well, why would spirit, why would the universe even want that? Well, then we'd have to go back to the very beginning of why would spirit, God, the I am, the universe decide to even create all this? And my understanding is that it got lonely just being God. God wanted to see what God could create. And so there was what we call the Big Bang, or some people, it doesn't really matter. The words don't matter. It's another way that humans have a way of categorizing and making a pretty box with a bow so we can understand it. But this is, there's so much that's beyond our understanding that one of the best mental health things you can do is to experience being lost and learning to be okay with not knowing, learning to be okay with being lost, learning to be okay, because when we're lost, we're really found. It's the paradox. And when we think we've got it all together, just wait. Just wait. Give it some more time. Because we didn't come here to have it all together. We came here to get messy. We really did. This is messy. We came here to have feelings that feel like sometimes out of control and they're uncomfortable. But try not to have them, and you're really no different than a robot. Try not to have them. If you're human, it's just not possible. You just become a shutdown, and you'll go into darkness because the light is not from shutting down. The light is an expansive opening, embracing. So traditional psychology helps you with the ego. I I don't see how you can find mental health in trying to love the ego, respecting the ego, understanding the ego, but and even loving the ego, but the ego is not going to love you back. You could say, you know what, I love you for what you do, but you know what, you got to take a back seat now. Because if we let the ego, which is mind, control everything, you're going to feel out of control. It's when we allow ourselves not to control anything anymore, including the mind, getting out of our mind and surrendering and meeting life on life's terms. When we can do that, and it takes a lot to get it. It actually doesn't take so much to get there. It takes much more to live in it. Getting there really is not so hard. It's just saying, okay, I'm going into resistance. I'm not, and resistance is persistence. I'm suffering because I'm back in the ego. I'm resisting what is instead of being in a place of acceptance. So for a moment, conceptually, we can all go there and go, okay, all right, I'll surrender and allow life to be on life's terms. And then we go, okay, we unburden ourselves, we relax in it. We go, okay, now we're able to shift and get back to the gratitude. Okay, what's good about this moment? Well, even though I'm uncomfortable, I do have my health. Yeah, that's good. And I have my dog, and I love my dog. And I start to climb up the ladder, remembering all the good things. But when I'm in that place where the ego has run amok, we're all the same because we're all in that illusion.
Have you found working with clients, do people know the difference when they're seeking counseling, the difference between religion and spirituality? Is there a difference when you're working with your client, with people that already come from religious backgrounds? How do you rectify that?
Oh, God, that's another great question. Really great question, Ella, because I came from a religious background. So I can tell you there is a huge difference. You know, it's the difference between studying medicine and healing yourself. It's religion is dogma and doctrine, and it's a place where people think they're being taught the truth, and we have to believe that when we're in it, and it gives us community. That's what it gave me. The most important part is I already had a relationship with God before I went to church. And so did most people. Most people don't go to church and then all of a sudden have a relationship with God. They have a relationship with God, and that pulls them into church where they feel like they can maybe heal that relationship, make it better, go deeper, whatever. They're seeking. And that's a place to go. And there's a great community in many churches. But here's the thing. Churches, at least in the Christian religion, and I believe in, and I've heard in most religions, although since I haven't studied them all, I can't say that as truth. But in the Christian religion and in many religions, you are born a sinner. So you, as a sinner, you're already tainted. That's where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So we're already on the dark side. We're already like messed up because we're already like sinners. We're already screwed up. And so we spend the rest of our life trying to get approval, but we're not even trying to get it from God. We're trying to get it from each other, and we can't give it to each other. Because if you can give it to another human, you can take it away. If you can get it from another human, that means you're giving the power to that human that can also take it away. You're giving power to another human who never has that power unless you give it to them. And that's kind of the training, is we've been taught like we're basically sinners or bad, and we've got to pray and be saved. We've got to be saved because we're not good enough.
So, how do you guide people from that belief system or that indoctrination? And I don't want to dishonor anybody's religion because I feel like
It's a
I was raised in, I'm baptized for, four different religions. So I completely honor the process and ritual and why we do religion. But I will say astrologically things are changing because of these,
Yeah.
Pluto and Capricorn. We'll never see it again in our lifetimes. And this is where these movements astrologically and these currents are showing us like, look, and we've also got Neptune in Pisces, which is again, we're not going to see that again for a long time. And Pisces had to do with religion. And 29 degrees were at the last ends of it. We might be
Wow.
seeing the summing up of a lot of these religions.
Wow.
That have led us to our spiritual nature. But now, because Aquarius is like you said, Jade, it's not about looking for the God outside of us. Aquarius is about, no, you actually have a correspondence with the God inside of you. And so we're looking now for sovereignty in that connection to whatever God source, whatever. We're looking for it in a different way. And we
Right.
can definitely see it. And that's causing a lot of health and especially mental health crises because we're going through this interesting um, cognitive dissonance where it's like, wait a minute, but my whole life I believed this way and that there was this being and I was waiting for the savior energy. And now, wait, now you're telling me that I'm the one that's going to have to save myself and I'm going to have to do the work. So, what are you seeing
Mm.
people? How are people responding to this way of seeing the world from a new set of eyes, if you will? From looking outside
Yeah.
to doing the work inside.
Well, I don't discourage people from religion. What I do is I integrate it. For example, as a Christian, we know that the Trinity is God, the Father, the Holy Ghost. Well, where's the Holy Ghost?
Mhm,
The Holy Ghost, we're taught, dwells within.
mhm.
Well, if God dwells within, then if you're talking also, but you're saying God dwells within you, but at the same time you're a sinner. So on some level, if you're okay, so then does that mean that the Holy Spirit? No, it's just a doctrine or dogma, but it still carries the truth within it, which is that you have the Spirit within you. Even the church will say that, but the church doesn't help you to focus on that. So it's just a shift in focus or perception. It's not that all is bad or all is good, but the answers we've been taught have to come from a minister or somebody else that has more knowledge, more education, who's more of an expert on the workings of God. Well, now what we know is that the God within us can relate, communicate, connect completely without an intermediary. We don't need the intermediary. We still need community. We still need our faith. We still need all of those things, surrendering, etc. But it really isn't that off. There are aspects of religion that did teach us the truth, but it's having us focus on areas of the truth that may not be for our highest and greatest good at the time. For
So what
example,
have you discovered in your own spiritual practices, in your own awakening process from religion to where you are now with your training in psychology? What belief system or ideology do you now foster within yourself that you share with your clients?
the only belief that I share with my clients when I'm thinking about, I keep my own personal stuff out of it as much as possible because it's really not about me. It's about what's going to work for them. So it's about their connection within. And it might be different from my connect. I mean, I don't go there with my clients. My number one thing with working with people, my focus, my number one, I would say, belief system that operates is always finding the truth within. And that goes for my clients of guiding them and assisting them to find their truth, because I truly believe we're made uniquely different to have all these different experiences. And yet the unity of who we truly are, that Holy Ghost, that spirit, whatever name you want to call it, is all part of the same oneness. So there's unity. It sounds a little convoluted, and it sounds a little like, well, we're separate, but we're together. Which is it? It's both. And it all depends on what you're looking at. If my egos come in, like just sneaks in as it does, and all of a sudden I'm in an egoic pattern, I'm looking at things very differently than when I catch myself and oh yeah, there I am in the ego again. And then it's such a different perspective when
How
I
can you
get,
catch yourself when you're in the egoic pattern? How can people catch themselves better at that in recognition of that?
well, for me, the first thing is to know it doesn't feel good. When I'm in my ego, I'm not feeling as good as when I'm not in my ego. So that's usually the first telltale sign, is I'm not feeling good. It can be that uncomfortableness we're talking about, or it can be frustration. A lot of, you know what the biggest thing I'm seeing right now is everybody is frustrated. Everybody's experiencing frustration because we're in transition, and we as humans we're not comfortable in transition. I'm not comfortable even knowing the truth. What helps me to get back is that I am committed to living in the truth, whatever that is for me, whatever that is for you. But that's my commitment. So I go, is this the truth? If I hear myself criticizing myself or anybody else, judging myself or judging someone else, because if I'm judging myself, I'm judging other people. One of the same. When I start, oh God, there I am judging again. Okay, well, I know that's not the truth. So then I have the choice. Okay, again, do you want to live in truth, or do you want to live in the ego? The challenge is that the ego comes in, the number of years that you're alive is the number of years that you've been operating on this system, this pre-programmed, pre-patterned system. And so you can't get it in one try. You can't even get it in 2 tries. Trust me. I maybe 100 tries, and I'll still go for a time, and I'll feel like, hey, I'm back in the flow. Yeah, I'm back in the truth. This feels wonderful. Woo. And I'm telling you, my clients call up and I can lift them up in a nanosecond. I have so much light. But that light, if I don't embrace the darkness when it comes back in, then it starts acting out.
So how do you because we're in Virgo season right now. We talked about at the beginning of the podcast that Virgo is all about health and matters of health, mental health, spiritual health, physical, all things to do with health relation, our routines, how we ground in. So for anybody that's watching in the now or in the future, for this Virgo season that we're about to do for the next 3 weeks, what would you recommend anybody watching now that action steps that they can take when they're in their egoic patterns and it's coming up and they want to be more in their heart, and there is this sort of spiritual warfare happening within everybody as
Mm-hmm.
people are moving more towards their light, but also having to embrace their shadow. And so what would you
Yeah.
recommend your clients to do during these times, especially during Virgo season? Like, what action steps? How can we apply these to having more health in our life, for healthy practices, healthy thoughts?
Another great question. Really good questions, Ella. Yeah, you're talking about what I call heart coherence. How do we get to heart coherence when we have so much so many mental issues coming up? In particular, the 2 biggest would be, as I said, frustration. Anxiety is the next. Anxiety, frustration, they're at the top, and depression. But anxiety and frustration are really big right now. And it is true. I love that you brought up the heart coherence, because the answers are really going to be coming from your heart, not your head anymore. I want to be really clear when I say that mental health is down in the heart. And we're used to dealing with mental health up here. We've all been trained. I still go there first and then I go, oh, yeah, that's right. That's not where it is anymore. It never was. It's down in the heart. And it's down with feelings. And feelings are sticky. Feelings are, yeah, they're complicated. They're complex because we didn't grow up. None of us grew up feeling that feelings were really okay, all of them. And so we have feelings we're not really comfortable with and feelings we're comfortable with. We call them good or bad. They're just on the same continuum. But so the steps are A, it's not your fault. Let the guilt go. That's of the ego. It's really important. So many of us are in pain over either guilt or bad feelings about ourselves. It's all about self love. Know that when you don't feel good about yourself, it just means your ego is back. Because the truth of who you are is that you are. They say perfect, whole, and complete, but what I know for sure is you were made by love. You are lovable, you are loving, and you are loved beyond belief.
So would you recommend people using those mantras then? Because again, we're looking for practical applications on how to, it's easy to say don't feel guilty, but how do we actually
Yeah, the
remove the
affirmations.
guilt or move the energy from guilt real time when we're feeling these things?
Yeah. In order to really do the mental health work, first of all, let me just say, if you could get somebody to help you with it, it's not going through this alone is just it's just a gentler way to go through this process because we're all going through it. So if you can go through it with someone else that's just there for you to help you and guide you, just to support you while you're going through this, it will make a huge difference because when we're outside of it, we can see easier than when we're in the middle of it. I can't see the outside when I'm in the middle of it. Okay, so not initially until I get so uncomfortable. I'm like, what's going on here? And then I wake up. But affirmations, they have them on YouTube, they have them in books. You can write them down, the affirmations. But here's the thing, all the suffering is based on old beliefs. An old belief is a repeated idea, just an idea that we repeated over and over again through the X amount of years. How do you get that? How do you change that? That's the best question on earth. And the only way we can change it is to release the old belief. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. Every time we hear that, every time that comes up, is to replace it. It has to be replaced. Imagine a cup that's been full of lies, full of bad water. Okay? If you empty it out, it's going to be empty, and it's just that bad water is just going to end up back in there. It just goes back in. If you fill it up with new thoughts, with truth, and I call new thoughts truth, it may not feel like truth. Like if I say to you, replace worthless with I am lovable, I am loving, I am exactly as God created me, even if it doesn't look like that, which is perfect. If you replace that, you can't replace it once and go, okay, I don't have that issue anymore. I don't have money issues anymore. I don't have personality issues anymore just because I saw it. No, it has to be replaced. I am abundance. I am love. And when you replace it over and over and over again as a process, it becomes a belief. And guess what? Once it's a belief, you don't have to work on it anymore. You don't have to think about it anymore. It's just what you believe. And that really is the pathway, but it can be very challenging by oneself because we often are so attached to those old beliefs. We can't basically unglue. We can't remove it. We have to consciously release and then replace from I am not worthy. Oh, that's a lie. okay, what can I replace that with? Even though it feels like the truth, what can I replace it with? I'm going to replace it with the truth that feels like the lie right now, which is I am worthy. God doesn't make mistakes. Source doesn't make mistakes. And by the way, I just want to address one thing that you brought up, Ella, that I still feel like I didn't cover enough. And that is that whatever, you know, having a lot of experiences in churches and with people who have been maybe hurt by churches through judgment or whatever. Just the solution is through forgiveness. It is the spiritual tool to release us from our resentment, our bitterness, our anger, our hurts that stick like glue inside sometimes. And the way to unglue it, to free yourself, is through the tool, the gift of forgiveness. And then affirming over and over the truth of who you are. Standing in your truth, deciding what your truth is for you, and then choosing no matter what avenue I go down, no matter what road I fall down, I'm coming back to truth no matter what. Eventually, you will live there. And until then, you just practice that over and over. Forgive yourself, get back on your feet, get back on the horse, so to speak. Know that you're worthy. Know that God created you, that you're here for a purpose and a reason. Remind yourself that. Write these things down because you have to feed yourself the truth of this. And whatever goes in easy for me was always what I called the truth. It went easy even when I didn't understand it.
I'd like to bring us back to the Virgo season with this, because right now is the perfect time. Why we even decided to get together and do this series is because Virgo. So astrologically, we have the cardinal points, the fixed points, and the mutable or the changeable points. And so right before each change of season, it's what's called the mutable signs, or the time we change. So right now, Virgo is a changeable or mutable sign. So we're changing from the months of August, the fixed fire, which was hot. And now with Virgo season in September, we're changing and we're now going into the fall months, right? So I just wanted to give people also, as well as, the mantra work and being very aware with the patterns of thoughts. Per Virgo season, it's about our routines, and what you said, what we do habitually is what's going to create those new habits, those new thought forms, those new neural pathways. So in order to create those spaces, that's why Virgo season, it's all about cleansing, doing some sort of parasite cleanse, doing some sort of detoxification. You're going to want to, with all your mutable signs, do that 4 times a year to cleanse and clear out. So you're making space for these new thought forms, these new patterns, these new mantras. So in addition to doing the mantra work and to acknowledging the ego and again, doing the psychological and the mental, Virgo's coming in and say, yeah, but I need a practical physical application. So this would be the great time, especially with the new moon in Virgo we just had, to start a new workout routine, to start, moving the energy, to do a clean your house, right? Move the energy from the months of the fixed fire, which was August. Now we're changing, getting ready to go into fall. So we got to create spaces for these things to fall. And so these new awareness, new light is going to be coming in. That's why we astrologically we're shown there's actually not just it's good to change, but it's good to know when to change these things. So getting the support from the universe also structurally with timing of things. That's why it felt so really apropos and potent to be talking about these wellness practices and constructs within the mental realms, and then when to actually take action to start moving some of these energies.
I love what you said about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So just wanted to bring, again, I Lives in Astrology is all about all is self. So we also like to bring a pragmatic approach to, yes, there's very esoteric and higher, deep, metaphysical concepts that we love to explore in this channel. But also, how do you bring it down to a very pragmatic, usable way so that you can actually change your energy, so you can feel better, so you can get healthier, so you can change your mental constructs. So this
Good.
is again this ongoing series for the next. This was the first week. We'll do it 2 more weeks after. Be really pointed focus on mental health concerns, mental health practices, changing the health, and the things that we can do to support that. And in the next conversation that we're going to be having, we're going to be doing it for the next two Thursdays. We're going to invite in some participation. So if the next conversation at 11:11 on Thursday, I'll set the dates. Please come with your questions. Anything that you might be needing support with, specific questions about health regimens, things on practices on how to use mantras. And then next week, we're going to be going into, again, continuing health practices and awareness as we're integrating all these really dynamic energies from not just the astrological viewpoint, but from the human viewpoint that all of humanity right now is going through deep, deep change. And so, as we're summing up and kind of ending this conversation, Jade, would you like to end with the viewers anything they could be working on for this upcoming
Yes.
7 days?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. This is great. Yes, because it's so true. You have to be able to move that energy. Okay, one homework I tell clients is you get a piece of paper and on the left side you write down all the negative things you tell yourself that you've been telling yourself forever. On the other side, I want you to replace it with something positive. And it doesn't have to just be the opposite. Like, for example, I am not worthy to, I am worthy. Yes. But you can also do, I am not worthy to, I am the love that God created me to be. Whatever's going to lift you. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's very practical. One side of the paper, negative, positive. And start to practice those once you've written them down and you catch yourself. But also, I love that you brought up the energy physical, because we are not just mental. And we're not just spiritual. We are in this avatar. We are in this body. And so moving energy, I tell people, if you've got a lot of frustration, take a plastic bat, hit a pillow, go out and hit some balls, stomp on the ground, growl. I love growling. When I get frustrated, if you growl, you move that energy. So these are practical ways to move energy. Yin yoga. I am a big fan and proponent of yin yoga. Why? It moves my energy. Mm-hmm. So these are some practical ways you can start, at least this week.
Why yin as opposed to yang, or instead of yang?
Well, yin is the feminine and yang is the masculine. What I find is with the yin, it's much more about stretching and relaxing. And it's just, for me, a lot easier. The male feels more like a strength building, a muscle building, which is also good and helpful. I mean, they're both beneficial. They're just different. And for me, being that I'm older now, the yin is the gentler way to go for me.
Well, next week, I want to bring up the topic too. We've got Mars in Cancer. So Mars, anybody that knows astrologically, is our action planet, and in Cancer, it's about our emotions. And it's going to be normally, Mars travels through a sign within 6 weeks, right? But it's going to be in Cancer because of the retrograde season for 6 months. So that's a long time for Mars to be in one particular sign, and Cancer is all about safety, security, our financial security, and feeling safe and comfortable. So we're going to be very active for this next 6-month period, taking action towards that safety and comfort, and that might even be in your own body. So that's, we're going to be discussing part of the astrology of next week of how Mars in Cancer could be affecting you energetically, also physically, because again, it is going to be a long transit that's unusual for that particular planet. And again, we're going to be talking about more health practices, discussing more of the health journey over these next few weeks while the sun's in Virgo. And of course, Jade, as her astrologer, she's got natally the sun, or the moon rather, in her Virgo. So she was born with moon in Virgo, which again makes sense, right? The health consciousness, and she's got an emotional need to be healthy. And that's what a great leader in this conversation to be spearheading this. So, Jade, I want to really thank you for your time and energy and for the conversation. And thank you, everybody, for watching for the now and whenever you decide to watch this. And yeah, just know that you're not alone. These are very interesting times, and it's now time to pull from our own gnosis and share what we have been finding that works.
Oh, and meditate. I forgot a big one. Meditate. Yeah, I forgot. Thank you. That's real practical meditation. We'll talk about, I'll bring that up.
We'll go into that next week about meditation. We may even do a group meditation for the collective if it's in alignment, so that we can practice really honing in and focusing and managing the mind. Because again, Pluto in Aquarius, it's all about the higher mind. We're moving to a lot of air frequencies. So it is about learning about the mind. So, all right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you for connecting to the channel. We love you so much. And thank you again, Jade, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your time, and sharing the pointers and the tools. And please, is right now, before we get off, what are you offering your clients moving forward as we are approaching these really intense energies? What are you giving your clients these days? What are you offering?
Well, I'm offering sessions, one-on-one sessions. What I also am going to be offering, it's not right now, but I'm going to be offering opportunities for people to come on as a small group to share, because you're not alone in this. And I just feel that the more people we have in a small group to talk about, to normalize it, because we have so much to teach each other and learn from each other's experiences that help.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a beautiful, blessed day, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
All right.